some more.
Yo, what's good people, Izzy Max here, back again with another tier list video. In today's tier list, we are going to be going over the Megas. Before I get started, I do think we will get Megas back, either in the next generation or before Sword and Shield is over. I don't think we'll get them in the Isle, or in the Crown Tundra, but I'm a firm believer of that we will get more DLC in the future anyway. There's my dog. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. I'll be ranking these on aesthetic, power, and just overall how I feel about these Pokemon. So let's get started with Alakazam. I feel like Alakazam is super strong, and Trace is its ability when it Megas. Problem with Alakazam is it's super frail. And yeah, Pursuit's not in the game anymore, but Sucker Punch still is, and it still has abysmal defense stats. However, if your opponent doesn't have access to Sucker Punch or anything that's faster than Alakazam, I feel like it's going to get, it could do a lot of work, but if they do, this mon's just going to pretty much disappear and not do anything that it needs to be. So I'm going to put it in the B tier. Next up is Gyarados. So it actually changes types to the Dark typing, which I think is cool. It's no longer quad weak to Electric, but it is... it's a Dark type. I don't know why they didn't make it Dragon type like they did kind of like Charizard. But overall, I kind of like it. I wish it was faster, and I wish its design was a little bit better. But that's going in the B tier as well. Next up is Aerodactyl. I'm not a fan of Aerodactyl in its regular form. It is fast, it can set rocks. But overall, again, it's super frail, and it hits decently hard. And with Tough Claws now, a lot of its moves hit even harder, but I don't like it, so I am going to put it in the C tier. Next up is Scizor. Now this is one of my favorites, and in its Mega, nothing really changes. It keeps its ability, keeps its typing, but its stats go through the roof. It is objectively better than its pre-Mega in like a in a battle format, because when it's not Mega, you can hold Choice Band, you can hold Life Orb, Leftovers, but with this, you're kind of just it's kind of one-dimensional. But with that being said, I do thoroughly enjoy Mega Scizor, and I am putting it in the A tier. Next up is Mega Houndoom. It gets an ability change to Solar Power. I don't know if it had I don't remember if it has Solar Power or not. Houndoom's not really the most rememberable Pokemon, but it's overall just not very good competitively, and I just don't like Houndoom overall. I'm just putting it down here. T-Tar. T-Tar is my favorite Mon. Mega T-Tar, kinda not. Again, it loses the chance at holding an item, and I think items are really help T-Tar a lot. But you are able to set your weather twice with the same Pokemon. So if you have T-Tar out and you have the sand, someone comes in, resets your weather, you can just Mega and reset your weather instead of having to switch out and waste a turn switching. But the big, I guess, upgrade for Mega T-Tar is it does get a 10-point speed boost, which isn't a huge deal. But nevertheless, I am putting T-Tar in the A tier. Next up is Gardevoir. So regular Gardevoir is kind of lacking both offensively and defensively, but being in its Mega form, it does get the ability Pixelate. It can't hold a Pixie Plate like Sylveon, but it still does do a lot of damage with its Hyper Voices and stuff like that, and I am putting that one also in the A tier. Mega Sableye really benefits from having a Mega. Regularly, Sableye with Prankster is, of course, really good in like VGC, not too great in singles, it's kind of just a disruptor. But when you put it, when it's in its Mega form, it can bounce back hazards. It is super tanky, and it can boost up with like Calm Mind and stuff. It just can be really hard to take down, and can sweep teams with only having one weakness to Fairy. In terms of an upgrade and how Sableye works, I am putting it in the S tier. Next up we have Aggron. Aggron's a weird one as it loses its rock typing, which, thank God, now it has no quad weaknesses, and gains an ability Filter. So it is a super defensive tank, And if we get this Mon back in Sword and Shield, it will have Body Press, and with that massive defense stat, I can see Aggron being a huge threat. But Aggron as a whole, not the greatest Pokemon. I'm going to put in the C tier. Medicham, it has huge power in its regular form, and has it here as well, but it gets a big attack buff. And if you don't have an answer to it, or your opponent's able to set up webs or have some type of speed control, Medicham can literally tear through people's teams. And for just that, I'm going to put it in the A tier. I really like Medicham. Next up is Manectric. Now, in singles, I did draft this on my VGC draft team, and it did work when I needed it to, but it was very niche, and I didn't bring it really ever. But when Megas were allowed in VGC, this would be sometimes the 6th Mon, because it is Lightning Rod, or you can Mega it and get, of course, an offensive boost, but also it has Intimidate. And some really good coverage, of course. Not having hidden powers kind of hurt it. But overall, I really like Manectric, and I think I'm going to put it in the B tier. Mega Banette was one of the first Megas I kind of fell in love with. I know it's not the best competitively, but it does get Prankster now after it Megas, and it does get some good moves. Prankster, Destiny Bond, Will-O-Wisp, all that junk. But it's not a good Pokemon. This is going to be my first F tier Mon. It's just not great. Aesthetically, I really like how it looks, though. And will always be one of my memories of when Megas first came around, because this was one of my first ones that I remember playing with on my team. Next up, we have Abomasnow. I'm going to go ahead and put it in the D tier. Personally, I would rather have regular Abomasnow holding items, because it is going to be your weather setter. But in its Mega form, it can do a lot of damage. But I will never overlook the fact that it's literally just a weather setter, and it needs to be holding items in order to do that job successfully. And Hail's one of the weaker weathers. Next up, we have Venusaur. This is actually on my current SBL team, and it's doing a good amount of work. Going against Dynamax Pokemon, though, it kind of does struggle. But it now has the ability Thick Fat, so it does take away its fire and ice weakness, which makes it super tanky. And then pre-Mega'd, it does have Chlorophyll, so it is very versatile, can be running like Sleep Powders, and just overall be an offensive or a defensive tank, whatever need be. This one is actually probably going to be another A tier for me. Next up is Charizard X. This one actually changes to a Dragon type and has the Tough Claws ability as well as Aerodactyl, but this boosts moves. I think like Flare Blitz gets boosted, Dragon Claw, Dragon Dance. If it's able to set up a Dragon Dance, you usually just lose if you don't have a faster or better answer, and usually most teams don't. So with that being said, I am putting Charizard in the S tier. Charizard Y, again, just kind of a weather setter. I know it's really good. I am going to put it above Abomasnow, but it's really good at doing its job, setting the weather, taking advantage of its own weather, doing a lot of damage. But it is quad weak to rocks, so when you're switching it in or bringing it in on a clean switch, it's still losing 50% because it cannot hold the heavy duty boots if, of course, these come back in this current generation. So with that being said, I'm not the biggest fan of Charizard Y. I'd rather run Ninetales just because I can have that weather setter and other Pokemon to take advantage of it. Next up, we have Blastoise. I don't like Blastoise. I'm putting it in the D tier. With Blastoise now having access to Shell Smash, it's probably going to want to take advantage of its normal form more than its Mega. Like I said, this is if these Mons come back in Gen 8. With Mega Launcher as an ability, though, it does get a good boost in some of its moves, and it doesn't have to run Shell Smash and lower its defenses. But however, I do think the Shell Smash set is better overall than the Mega. Beedrill, this is one of my favorite Megas. I used it to really good success in a couple of draft leagues. It just hits incredibly hard with adaptability. It made a useless Mon otherwise pretty useful. If you build around it, it can be a really good Mon. Super fast, hits really hard. Of course, it is very frail, but I like when they take really crappy Mons and make them really good. So far, this has been the first Pokemon that was like super unusable. Maybe Banette, but Beedrill definitely needed some love. Next up, we have Pidgeot. I'm gonna put Pidgeot in the B tier. It turned a mostly physical mon into a special mon, and now it has no guard. So you do have no guard like Heat Wave and Hurricane. Super fast and can hit really hard. And overall, just a decent mon. I think in VGC it also get like Tailwind because it is decently fast. So he can really pick off some opponents. Spamming Hurricane is really, really good. Brave Bird spam is really, really good. So I can't see why Hurricane spam wouldn't be just as good. Next up, we have Slowbro. I like regular Slowbro more. Most Slowbros, they are super physically defensive. So they usually run like a Calm Mind set and just become super, super bulky and really hard to take down with Slack Off. And with its Mega, it does get more bulk, but you can't hold recovery items or sustaining items like leftovers or berries and stuff like that. So that's why it's going in the C tier. Mega Gengar was probably one of the better Megas in VGC wise, because it does get the ability Arena Trap, which means no flying type or other than flying type or ghost type Pokemon could switch out. So it puts your opponent in really like bad positions, and usually this is ran with like Perish Song teams. And overall, it was just a really good mon, can hit really, really hard and just be a complete nuisance. Next up, I want to put it in the F tier because I hate Mega Kangaskhan, but Mega Kangaskhan is a threat. It basically hits twice, the second hit being, I think, only 25% damage, but it can break Focus Sashes. Seismic Toss set does a tremendous amount of damage. It is fast, super bulky, and overall just a incredibly powerful mon, especially with Power Up Punch. So every turn it's getting a +2 boost to its attack stat. Next up, we have Pinsir. As much as I want to say it fell in the same category as Beedrill, I think Pinsir is kind of still bad. It is now quad weak to rock. It was only just weak to rock. It does get the ability Aerialate, so it is going to be able to fire off like Aerialate returns, but it's still not that fast. It does hit really, really hard, but not a fan. Next up, we have the Mewtwo's. I'm gonna put these in the F. I never used them, and I don't like legendary megas because they are nutty busted. But if I were to actually rank them on the power scale, they'd go in the S tier, but they are just mega Mewtwo's, and I don't like them. Next up we have Ampharos, Electric Dragon, super bulky. I think your ability is like Mold Breaker, so it didn't really do anything other than like negate lightning rods and stuff. I'm gonna put you in the D tier. I think you would need a rework in order to be really good. Steelix, I'm not gonna talk about it much because it's pretty much the same as Aggron, other than it still does have the ground typing. Mega Heracross is really good. It now gets Skill Link, and it does have like Bullet Seed, Rock Blast. I don't think it gets the Icicle one, but it can hit extremely, extremely hard. The only thing that's holding it back really is its speed stat, so you have to kind of either set webs or use tailwinds, or it just needs a lot of support in order to kind of go off. Next up is Grovyle. Is this Grovyle? Yeah. No, not Grovyle. Gosh dang, Sceptile. C tier. I think its ability makes it really, really bad. Like, why does it have Lightning Rod? It makes 0 sense for a Grass Dragon to have Lightning Rod. I get it aesthetically for its design, but it's just not really doing anything for it. I think it's quad resisted anyway. Like, nobody's clicking electric moves. Next up is Blaziken. Blaziken's kind of one of those mons that fell into the part with Kangaskhan. Other than Mega Blaziken wasn't really used in VGC too terribly much. I know it was like had some niche usage, but you could pretty much do the same thing. Sorry, my dog's playing with a toy. But you could pretty much do the same thing with regular Speed Boost Blaziken, and both of them are normally banned in draft leagues. So next up is Swampert. Swampert's one of my go-tos if I want to draft weather, if I'm feeling feisty. I hate drafting weather, but you can't doubt the amount of power that Swampert can have with the Swift Swim. Ground and water coverage, hits super hard. Nothing really wants to switch in on ground and water. So overall, solid mod. Next up is Mawile. This is another one that usually gets banned in draft leagues. But it's one of those niche bans. Sometimes it's allowed, sometimes it's not. It is really slow, but it does get huge power with a giant attack stat. It does get Sucker Punch, Fairy, and Steel. Steel are really good, but it does go down relatively easy if you have good checks to it. Next up is Sharpedo. This one's probably going in the... It depends how you want to run it. If your league lets you, doesn't require you to Mega Turn 1, it's a C tier. If it requires Mega Turn 1, it's a D tier. For that being said, though, I am going to put it in D tier. It really wants... It has Strong Jaw now as an ability instead of Speed Boost, but it really wants that Speed Boost turn 1. So it is kind of setup based. You kind of do have to run Protect on it, and all that jazz. Next up is Camerupt. It does get... It's probably the best Sheer Force user in the game, but man, is it slow. It has weaknesses out the wahoo. Yeah, but if you can get it going, like, all power to you, you'll probably sweep, but it is incredibly slow, super amount of weaknesses, and just overall not my favorite design-wise either. Mega Altaria is kind of cool. I'm going to put it in the B tier. It now is not a flying type, it now is a fairy type. With Pixelate as its ability. Not too sure if it takes use of that. If you want to run a physical set, it will. It'll take use of that with running Return and stuff. It does get Dragon Dance and Earthquake. I think it gets Play Rough as well. I'm not for sure. But again, it kind of lacks in the speed department, which is kind of where it falls apart. And it requires a lot of setup to get going. But overall, a good mon. This is probably the mon that benefits the most from the typing changes when it megas. Because when it's not mega'd, you are weak to weak to Ice, weak to Fairy, weak to Dragon. When it mega evolves, you're immune to Dragon, only weak to Ice, weak to Poison, weak to Steel. You can just do a lot of mind games with this Pokemon, and it's decently good. Absol, I'm putting the C tier. This needed to be the first Dark Fairy instead of Grimmsnarl, but it wasn't. Nonetheless, though, Absol does hit very hard. Again, it's just super frail. Glalie, not a fan. It gets Glaciate, like, big deal. I do not like it. Glaciate Explosion is really all it can do. So, skip. Salamence, C tier. That thing is fast. It hits like a truck. It gets Aerialate, same as Pinsir, but does it way better. Overall, a good mon. Same with Metagross. These two, literally these mons right here are usually banned in draft leagues. So if that tells you something, they're really good. And again, you might argue that's why am I putting Mewtwo's down here? I just don't like legendary megas. But Metagross, really good. It does get Tough Claws now. Its speed stats a little bit better. Bullet Punch does take advantage of that Tough Claw ability. And it just hits like a truck. And it's decently bulky as well. The Lotties. These are a little bit different than Mewtwo. Because Mewtwo is a mon that you could never really use anyway. But sometimes the Lotties are available. But I am only going to put them in the A tier. Not much has changed with them. They have the same ability, same typing. They both even look the same, like they didn't do much design-wise with them. Other than they just get stat boosts. And I know they are really good Pokemon when they can Mega, but they're not appealing to me. I'd rather not use them. I hate Kyogre, I hate Groudon, and I hate Rayquaza. I play a lot of VGC, and these mons literally were everywhere, and I was tired of seeing them. Granted, they are super good, but they are weather fighters. They fight for weather like non-stop. Next up is Lopunny. Lopunny's going to go in the A tier. It hits like a truck. Scrappy. You can Scrappy Fake Out, Scrappy Return, and not be worried about them switching in a Ghost type. No matter what you click, it's going to hit, no matter what on the typings. Mega Garchomp is actually going to go in the F tier as well. Regular Garchomp is not even subjectively better, it's just better. Regular Garchomp can hold an item. Regular Garchomp is faster. Regular Garchomp has a better ability. This thing gets Sand Force. So it's not even that good. It requires you to build a sand team. And even if you have a sand team, I think I'd still rather use regular Garchomp. Mega Lucario, another one that is usually banned. This thing gets adaptability, and it is nuts. It's also super fast. Yeah, just another really good steel type. With adaptability, it makes it even better. It might even hit harder than Metagross. Gallade. Gallade is one of my favorite mons to use. It's just fun. But I am going to put its Mega in the B tier. It is still kind of frail on the defensive end, and a lot of times it can lack damage, mostly because of its speed stat. It is getting outsped by a lot of Pokemon. Diancie, I'm going to put in the F tier. It's a quad weak to Steel, and Steel has priority. If it gets hit by any Bullet Punch dead, Bullet Punch dead, Scissor, Bullet Punch dead, quad weak to Steel does not help this Pokemon out. Granted, it is really good, and if they don't have that, you can literally sweep with this thing. But again, it falls into the category of it can't be used in VGC, so I didn't use it that way. And I don't like using it in singles because it dies relatively quickly. And then last up, Audino. Healer is its ability. So that screams VGC doubles, and you do not want to be using that thing in VGC. So, yeah. That's going to be it for this tier list. It was rather surprisingly long. If you guys enjoyed, please do leave a like. We are almost at 100 subs. And if you have any ideas for a future tier list, leave them in the comment section down below or at me on Twitter at IzzyMax4. And without further ado, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.